Welcome in to the DNVR Avalance Podcast, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one rated sportsbook app out there. Use code DNVR when you sign up for a new account. I'm your host, Rudo, joined by AJ Haefele to discuss the series as a whole against Las Vegas for the Avs. Should be an interesting, more of a deep divey type episode on this one. So, I mean, let's face it, both these teams were pegged to be top two in the West before the series, and I don't think the series has changed that much at all as they both split it 2-2. Any immediate big takeaways, AJ?
Yeah, I'd like to say, first of all, that the goaltending was great in that series.
Yep, on both sides.
You look at 2 of the 3 goals last night, there's nothing that you can really ask for Philipp Grubauer to do too much differently. You know, gives up what's essentially a breakaway to Tuck, an own goal on just a bad bounce with Byram. And then the third goal was, I put it in my piece last night, but arguably the worst goal of the entire series.
And that being a wide open look from the high slot, like
a prime scoring position. It was just not a great shot that Grubauer was probably expecting to have to make a fancy glove save there, and he's like, "What do you mean?" He flubbed it and it went 5-hole.
Yep. So that, I mean, obviously on Vegas' side, Fleury posts 2 shutouts in the series, and we'll dive all the way into why the Avs got shut out twice, I have no doubt. But starting with the goaltending, Grubauer has done exactly what the Avs have needed him to, with them not having a bona fide NHL backup at this point. He can clearly go toe-to-toe with Vegas' offense. There isn't the explosive offensive power for Vegas, right? It doesn't seem like it's quite there to the level that the Avalanche might be capable of. But to be honest, neither team really blew the other one out in this series. The biggest lead was this last game where Vegas won 3-0. So
yeah, well, I mean, the first 3 games were decided by a goal.
Yep, 1-0 in a couple of 3-2 games. So and the second game, the Avs score the game-winning goal with 39 seconds to go. The outdoor game, the 3-1, or the other 3-2 win, a little more of a traditional, like they had they kind of led throughout, 1-0, 1-1, and then 2-1, 3-1, 3-2. Yeah.
But what I did find really interesting is that the third periods where the Avs rolled in trailing Vegas, games 1 and 4, they dominated both of those periods. They came out with the kind of energy and not the execution that they needed, but they came out and played the way you'd want them to play in those periods. They didn't get it done, and this continues to be kind of quietly a thing that I worry about with this group, is that they spend so much time playing with the lead that they look a little uncomfortable at times playing from behind. Last night's game obviously was a little different. Nothing after the first period. And then they give up 3 goals in like an 8-minute period or something in the second.
Like that, yeah.
And they never really settle into, a normal like 1 or 2 goal game. It was like they got down 1-0, and then the bad bounce happened like 2 shifts later. Like it was not very long, and then they blinked and it was 2-0, and then one breakdown and it's a 3-goal game, and at that point you're just kind of like, this is done.
Yeah.
But I really I found the third period last night encouraging. Statistically we look at it and we kind of throw it in the bin and we say those are score effects. and they definitely are. But to see them play that way, despite it being a 3-goal game, if you're down 1-0, it's easy to get amped up and motivated, right? But Matt Calvert talked a lot about last night in the post-game presser that they have a higher standard for how they should play. And I think that between the second and third periods, they got to it. And I found that encouraging, just process-wise. I walked out of the game last night feeling uncomfortable about a couple of things and worried about them, like downright worried about this team's ability to do certain things as currently constructed.
Yeah. One of the first things here that chat has mentioned is Avs have, and this goes well beyond the Vegas series, over the last year and the 15 games of this season, they have one third period comeback.
Mm-hmm.
Look, the process is great that the Avs can get where they need to be to dominate a third period, but they lost both of these third periods against Vegas. They did not find the goal that they needed, and the one that was reasonable to come back. Yeah. And then this one, they didn't manage to find a way to get that goal. And where do you want to go first? Do you want to talk about the lack of scoring here?
Yeah. I think especially because I've been taking heat from people all day, which surprised me. I tweeted out last night, my last tweet before I had work to do, that the Avs kind of have a sneaky offense problem. And there were people who were like, yeah, but with COVID and now with injuries and you're being unreasonable or you need to relax, which don't tell people on the internet to relax unless they are being hysterical. Then you can do that. But I was very much not. I just said they have a sneaky offense problem. By that, I mean, we don't think of the Avs as a team with a problem up front on offense. We don't think of them as a team that struggles to score goals. But when you start to dig a little bit deeper, they're struggling right now. They've also struggled a little bit at even strength. Everybody loves to shit on the power play, but without the power play, they might not have 2 or 3 of the wins that they do. And, the power play is actually one of those units that's actually right now it's underperforming in the results. But if you look at some of the metrics in those things, it's better than it has been in previous years.
Right. And, I think it's hard to quantify for some people because you look at the top of the Avs scoring. MacKinnon's not having any trouble scoring. He has 18 points in 14 games. Rantanen 13 and 15. Makar 12 and 13. Their high end is still there. And honestly, even a significant amount of their secondary scoring is fine, I think. Saad with 10 and 15. Same for Donskoy. Gerard has 10 and 13 now that he's back in the lineup. Even Kadri has 8 and 15, which is a little bit low, but nothing egregious. But it's when you get into that bottom 6 for the Avs that there's just you're not asking your bottom 6 to score a lot, but the Avs just aren't getting enough scoring out of it.
Yeah, I put out a thing last night. There were a couple of people who responded aggressively with my with what I was saying about the bottom 6. Right now, if the entire bottom 6, what we think of as the bottom 6 regulars, if all of those guys continued at their current scoring paces across the 56 game point season or 56 game season right now, they would finish the season with Compher would have a 7-point season. Nichushkin would have an 11-point season. Donskoy would have a 37-point season. Jost would have a 4-point season. Calvert a 7-point season, and Belmar would have a 0-point season because he has yet to register a single point.
Yep.
And the only guy that you're looking on that list and you're saying, well, I don't mind that, is Jonas Donskoy.
Yeah.
Now, Calvert, you have to also be fair there. He's played half the games. So he's got like 1 point in like 7 or 8 games. The rest of these guys, the rest of these guys are all in the
12, 13,
12
14,
plus range here. Jost misses a game or two with COVID, and Belmar with the knee. Blah, 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 blah. Like, sure. But the rest of these guys, like, nothing is happening. And then you look at even strength. Tyson Jost, JT Compher, and Pierre-Edouard Belmar. That is half of your bottom 6. That is half of your bottom 6 that has 0 points at even strength.
Yep.
0 through 15 games. Now, we talked about people were overreacting. Oh, Brandon Saad is terrible. Brandon Saad doesn't look like he knows what he's doing. Brandon Saad is this. Brandon Saad is that because he had a slow start. And we were like, look, guys, 5 games is nothing. If you get into 15 and 20 games and this is still going on, you have a problem.
15 games is more than a quarter of the season.
Yeah.
In a 56-game year. So,
like, it's early, but it's not. At the same time, it's early, but it's not. And so two things that I want to address from the chat that are related to this. They haven't scored a power play goal in 6 games. That's bad. Full stop, recognize that. That's bad. They had 1 opportunity last night.
Yeah. And the opportunities have been fewer and further between as of late, a little bit.
Well, and their best opportunity was a 5-on-3 on ice that they couldn't
just
skate
dumpster.
on.
Yeah.
And they still created quality scoring chances on that. And it still took a great Marc-Andre Fleury, like, diving shoulder save to keep them off the scoreboard.
And you go back to the 2 games before that, and they were missing 2 key pieces to their power play.
Yeah, no Makar and no Landeskog.
Yep. And then when you're that depleted, you don't even talk about your second unit. That's just the rest of the guys you have on your bench, basically.
Well, and we saw, like, Devon Taves has run a great second power play next to Sam Girard when that guy was up top.
Yep.
On the top power play, nowhere near as good.
He was a ghost, yeah.
It's the same thing. It was the same thing that happened with Taves in New York last year. That's why he didn't run the top power play all the time. It's why it was when he was going well, toss him in there. But when he wasn't, Ryan Pulock took care of that.
I mean, it certainly seems like Taves is a lot more comfortable not being the distributor on the power play. When he's the guy that they're trying to run it through, he seems a little bit unsettled. Seems like he's not 100% sure what he wants to do with the puck at times.
Yeah, and last night was arguably his worst game as an Av. And
metrics-wise, it was really bad. But
he just got beat up a little bit last night, and that's one of those things that happens. Got robbed shorthanded in the third period, though. The other thing that I want to mention, the Logan O'Connor glove. Yep. We've talked about it on this pod. When he was playing, he absolutely did enough to deserve to stay in the lineup. But if the basis of that is the 2 goals that he scored, that dude basically took all of the puck luck that the entire bottom 6 has not had.
Yep.
Because if you look at his 2 goals, that dude, he scores one of them off of a relatively harmless slap shot that goes in off of the goaltender's stick that was laying on the ice next to the goaltender.
Pretty nonsense.
And then the other one was that little nothing chip that went in. It might have even gone in off the defender, but it was like it was not a quality scoring chance.
Yep.
He just like chipped the puck. And like it was the epitome of good things happen when you throw the puck at the net. He's got the goals. You can't take that away from him. But, like, let's do consider that he got more than his fair share of good fortune in getting them. And if you could just, any of those other guys had gotten that kind of luck, you know, they would be sitting with a goal or two to their name as well. It was just, Logan O'Connor has been good, and he's looked solid, but he's very, very limited. We saw that limitation when he had to play in a third line role instead of a very strict fourth line role.
Could not hang at all.
He just does not have the game to translate to that level. So that's a guy that, you know, it's totally, I have no issues. If we were to go to, you fast forward to tomorrow morning, a morning skate, and JT Compher is sitting and Logan O'Connor's in the game, I'm not gonna bag on the move. JT Compher has played his way out of the lineup in my mind. He's earned the opportunity to sit his ass down and think about what he hasn't done for 15 games.
I do want to talk about Compher a little bit more, but we do have to take our first period break. First, with Breckenridge Brewery, the official beer of DNVR. You can get 8 different types on tap down at the DNVR bar. Oh yeah, they have hard seltzer now. AJ loves it. I haven't had the chance to try it yet because the rest of the company drank all of it in like one night, so it must be pretty good.
If anything happens when the Nuggets guys are even remotely involved, you're screwed.
High key, the seltzers are the best seltzers I've ever had, though. So
there you go.
They be sure to fast.
Be sure to get it and drink them quick, because apparently, you know, they go fast. I wasn't able to get my hands on any. Go find it out there at your local liquor store. Use the Breck Beer Locator online to find Breck Brew near you. And, of course, we are sponsored by Chevalier Mortgage. Both Mike and Virginia have been in the business for quite a while. They're local and family-owned, just like us here at DNVR. So supporting our partners is supporting us. You can visit them at dnvrmortgage.com and not only get yourself a free consultation, but signed up for some free merch as well. Be sure to jump on that. Why not win yourself a free DNVR shirt? And you can get yourself set up as well, as Mike is a financial planner. So they bring a lot more than just a great rate to you as a mortgage company. So they'll deal with all of the financial issues that you're dealing with and create a great plan for you when it comes to getting a home loan. Again, check them out at dnvrmortgage.com. Michael Chevalier, NMLS 1931006. Virginia Chevalier, NMLS 1910631. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. I'm going to put a pin in Compher for just a second, because I do want to continue this Logan O'Connor conversation. You throw him in the lineup for JT Compher.
Mm-hmm.
I suspect you'd be okay with throwing him in the lineup over Bellemare.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anyone else you would actually heavily consider throwing him in the lineup over? Jost, possibly? Nichushkin, I imagine not.
So, at this point, Jost and Nichushkin are the same guy.
Agreed.
As long as they're giving you the defensive side of the puck that you're asking for from them, I think I'm good.
Yeah.
I think Compher and Bellemare have to be the guys that go before that. Somebody asked what LOC's underlying numbers look like, and they're phenomenal.
Yep.
They're all dumb, man. Like, just trust me, they're dumb. They're so good.
In 46 minutes of 5-on-5 time.
Right.
It's the one caveat there.
Yeah, and that's 46 minutes across 5 games.
Yep.
So that tells you like where he needs to be.
Pretty much. You're looking at a maximum of 10 minutes a night for the guy.
Yeah.
Which, after this last game against Vegas, Evan and I and Blaze talked about this a little bit on yesterday's pod, but it sure seems like the leash is getting yanked on JT Compher at this point.
It's slowly getting pulled away from him, because the coaching staff is like, we just can't keep doing this.
Yep.
And they can't. I mean, they straight up, they just can't, man.
He's been the exact opposite of Logan O'Connor, right? For how phenomenal his numbers are. JT Compher's numbers at 5-on-5 in almost every advanced statistical category is right at the bottom for the Avs.
Yeah.
Most nights he is their least effective player. So
yeah.
And I mean, that's tough, right? With Belmar, you say, look, this is an aging guy. You kind of expected this. He plays on the fourth line anyway and has a pretty defined role as someone who you're not necessarily expecting the most production out of, but you want to get some PK minutes and faceoffs won out of him.
Yeah.
With Compher, they're expecting an all-around game. They're expecting a guy that I'm not going to do the math to pare it down to a 56-game season, but should push for around 30 points in an 82-game season, and he hasn't even sniffed that this year.
Yeah.
So the sample size is starting to get into the range of, okay, this isn't just a cold streak, I guess, is my point.
Yeah, I think maybe my biggest concern for Compher is that he drags down every line that he's on.
Yeah.
When you look at all these other guys who have great underlying numbers, right? And they're moving around.
They're with Compher numbers, or
Landeskog and Jost have been great analytics players this year. They've driven play, all of that. They play 2 games next to JT Compher, and they both crater.
Yep.
And you're like, what's going on here, man? Like,
they just need something passable, right?
Like what's happening that, you know, they moved him off of center.
Yeah, they started playing him on the wing, or at least rotating him out to the wing over the last couple of games.
And that helped. Hadn't done anything. Guy's still a ghost.
Yep.
He's not doing anything. And like, we talked about him as a problem spot coming into the season, but nothing like this.
Yeah, there was a thought that, look, the Avs top 6 that they built is just not an issue, right? And
well, at even strength, you still have some concerns.
I agree, and we'll get into those. I think particularly Andre Burakovsky doing a bit of a ghost impression. But wrapping up this bottom 6 conversation first, it just hasn't been good enough at this point. We spent the first 10 games of the season talking about process and how good it was at times, especially for the fourth line with some of the iterations of it. But it does not matter at the end of the day how good your process is, because you can't win a hockey game without scoring a goal.
Yeah.
So, all right. Do you want to move into the top 6 conversation, or do you want to talk about the defense here?
Let's just keep with the forwards. We're already in this room.
So, obviously, I already mentioned the Avs just need more out of Andre Burakovsky.
3 points at even strength.
Pretty blatantly not good enough from him. He started off the season strong, was a big reason why the power play started off hot, but missed a couple of games and has not produced at all for them. It was just totally invisible in this Vegas series, since that is really the topic of today, I suppose. You've seen Brandon Saad, I think, probably have the most success on that second line against Vegas.
Yeah, and I think he's been, of that second line, he's been the most consistent positive contributor for them. Yep,
agreed. Kadri, a little bit all over the place, right? He had that game-winning goal, came up big in the clutch for the Avs there, but again, another guy who has done a little bit of a disappearing act against Vegas outside of that, has not played great games. On the other hand, he's had some quality opportunities. It's been a weird year for him. He has not had the finishing ability I think we are used to out of him.
We came into this season with it was like a low key,
like
some of the underlines got a little worse again last year.
Yeah.
And it was like, is this his aging curve setting in right at 30 where he stops being an effective top 6 player? But we weren't really that concerned. And he's been burning really, really hot and cold this year, where he's awesome, dominating games, really totally locked in, and you get 150% of what you expect out of Kadri in a night. And then on the nights where you don't get that, you're getting 10% of what you expect. The game-winning goal that he hadn't been any good. He'd had another forgettable night. And then, bam, puts that thing home, and you're like, Naz. Life with Naz. And, then the outdoor game is on the wrong end of Alex Tuch, making him look bad.
Straight up.
I don't think it's particularly poor defense. If Tuch goes hard at the net and Kadri doesn't defend him that way, we would be talking that would have been really bad defense. Tuch just did an awesome thing. But that's sort of, and what Marc-Andre Fleury made a personal highlight reel out of stopping just Kadri last night. And it was, it's frustrating because it's like, look, man, if you could do it differently, you one-time both of those pucks.
Yep.
And don't give Fleury the time to get across. How differently do you feel about it?
Right. If one of those goes in the net, all of a sudden, not so bad. And obviously, the shape of the game looks completely different. So you can only estimate so much there. But the Avs, I think Mike Kadri is a bit of a microcosm of their season as a whole. When you look at it, the Avs are a good enough team to beat teams without their A game, but every once in a while you see them pop off, right? The 8-0 game against St. Louis, they dropped 7 on the Sharks, and then the Minnesota back-to-back may be a perfect example. They dropped 5 on Minnesota and cruise to a victory easily, and then go a bit cold on the other side and end up losing in overtime to a much weaker team. The consistency just has not been there for honestly anyone. Like even Nathan MacKinnon, who has consistently put up points, what was it, like 8 games without scoring a goal? Yeah. And I think
he only has what, like 4 on the year?
Yeah, 4 or 5. I think 4. Yeah. 4 goals, 14 assists. So, and again, the consistency theme continues going. Mikko started the season pouring goals into the net, and now he hasn't scored in a hot minute. Yeah. So it's one of those tough spots where.
Well, and the Mikko and the MacKinnon thing, like that's a lever.
Sure, yeah. You can't have both of them scoring goals.
Right. Like both of those guys are not going to be pouring in goals every single game, what we've seen is that MacKinnon started off really slow in the goal scoring department. Mikko did not. And then Mikko slowed down and MacKinnon has 2 goals in the last week. And it's like, okay, well, hello, this is the balancing act. This is why we don't talk about Rantanen as a guy that's going to score 50, because he's got MacKinnon next to him. He's going to score 30 of his own. So I think that's just how that goes with that line. It's really, honestly, man, it's the other guys.
Yep.
I will also add that I think that there's some bad luck involved in this. I don't think it's all just these guys are all suddenly bad. When you look at on-ice shooting percentages, man, they're impossibly low.
The Avs have 5, or was last night 6? No, yeah, 5 regulation losses this year, and then 1 overtime loss.
Mm-hmm.
And in 3 of those, they faced pinnacle goaltending.
Yeah.
Like, cannot get any better in the NHL goaltending.
Yeah.
So I agree. You know, it's probably a bit of a conversation between, certainly they've been a little bit unlucky with their shooting percentages combined with, you know what, you get into games like that, people start squeezing their sticks a little bit, they start firing into the goalie's chest. Those type of things go hand in hand, and I think
it's like you look at the fourth line last night. The fourth line was really good, right?
Yep. Created opportunities, but
you know how many goals have been scored at 5v5 with PR Edward Belmar on the ice this season?
1.
0.
0, yeah.
He has not been on the ice for a single goal for the Avalanche through 12 games.
So that there's definitely a little bit of a PDO conversation going on there.
Yeah, the on-ice shooting percentage with Pierre Edward Belmar 5v5 is freaking 0. Now, some of these other guys too. Matt Calvert, 2.56.
Yeah.
Tyson Jost, 3.13. Val Nichushkin, 3.26. JT Compher, 2.74.
So a little bit of a lack of sustainability to how low those numbers are, for sure.
Like you look at, and then when you look at Logan O'Connor, 6.67.
Yep. Much more reasonable number.
That's right. Like that's all, you're sort of in the conversation when you're in the 6 range. It's still low for forwards. It's still low.
You're
looking
for like 8-ish, 9-ish percent
when
there.
When you really get into 7 to 9, you're right in that, like right in like the heart of where you ought to be.
Yep.
So when I say that, like when we're talking that this just gives you context. When we're talking Nichushkin and Compher and Jost and Calvert and Belmar all under 5, it's ridiculous. Some of this is absolutely just comically bad luck.
I don't disagree. I think, and we saw this happen in a much shorter span for the second line, right? The first 5 games of the season where they just couldn't get that dam to break, and then it finally broke, and it felt like, all right, they're back to normal. And while there's still been some inconsistency there, you've seen consistent production out of Saad. You've seen some production out of Kadri, even if it has been a little bit off and on, to the point where you're not freaking out about it like you are with the bottom 6, because you can see the talent level there with the second line. There are some points in this bottom 6 where you're not seeing the talent level anymore. Mm-hmm. Like with Donskoy obviously producing just fine. Calvert is the same player Matt Calvert has always been. He only knows one way how to play the game. Nothing has changed there. But you wonder about Belmar. It sure doesn't seem like his hands can keep up with the NHL anymore.
Yeah.
You wonder about Compher as he's not the player that the Avs have known for the past 3 years of his career by any means this season. And across the long term, this is probably the outlier year, but they have to find a way to get him back to where he was, or they have to bench him.
Yeah. They have to.
And then kind of the same story with Nichushkin, right? Yes, he's giving you great defensive metrics. Yes, he's worth keeping in the lineup, but the Avs missed the offensive production they got out of him last year.
Yeah, it was a huge reason. It was a huge boon in bringing him back. Was you said, okay, like we'll sign up right now for him to do this again, for him to give us 25-ish points.
Yeah, it would. I mean, right now they'll take any production they can get out of their bottom six. I don't think they care who it comes from, but
yeah. And with Nichushkin, like the underlying numbers with Nichushkin are as good as ever. They're great.
Exactly.
The big difference between Nichushkin and Jost, both of their defensive metrics are fantastic. The big difference is that Nichushkin is driving more offense. Way more offense.
Yep.
It's just not falling for him. It's not. And you say, okay, some of that is definitely a matter of time. We saw this last year. Nichushkin had a slow start last year, too, before he kind of,
went on a tear to balance it out a little bit.
Yeah. Exactly. And you're like, okay, well, this is just like the universe evening it up. This is the thing that happens in hockey. It's rare that guys go entire seasons totally snake bit like that. And Nichushkin's a guy 2 years ago that did it.
Yep.
You remember, this is a guy that when he got to Colorado was coming off of a season in which I think he played 52 games, averaged 13 minutes of ice time per night.
In that stretch, yeah.
Had 0 goals.
Yeah.
So, you're frustrated by that. But you're also like, look, we know that there's better. We're going to roll with it. And it's just,
I mean,
you're in a weird spot because these are not borderline NHL players that you're just willy-nilly dropping in and drop. This is not the Sven Andrighetto, Gabe Borks, Cody McLeod's, where you're like, these guys may not even be in the NHL on another team. If these guys are on another team, they're playing. These guys are NHL players. And I think that's where, Chad is starting to get into the Logan O'Connor, Shane Bowers, Martin Kaut thing. For the moment, we still think Kaut is hurt.
Kaut, as far as we know, the Eagles are officially saying he has an upper body injury.
Yeah. And Shane Bowers is about to have a back injury from carrying the Eagles.
That team. But the Bowers Kaut conversation, look, I think it's very easy right now with the way rosters are set up this year. It's not a conversation until they get called up to the taxi squad.
Yeah.
You don't even have to have it unless the Avs put them on the taxi squad because they can't call them up without doing that.
Yeah.
So there's a very simple indicator of whether there's a chance that these guys could play. And right now that answer is they're not going to play for the Avs in the immediate future. And I mean, given how many injuries and other things they were dealing with, Count conversations may be a little bit different if he was in fact dealing with an injury, but it sure looks like they don't have an interest in playing Shane Bowers this year unless something crazy happens. We'll leave it at that. We can take our second period break on that note with DraftKings Sportsbook, the #1 rated sportsbook app out there. If Shane Bowers ever does get into a game, I'm sure him scoring a goal will be something like 1 in 2,000. So maybe jump in on that if Bowers ever gets in. When you sign up with code DNVR, you can turn $1 into $100 bet on any basketball game this week. Any basketball game, they hit a 3-pointer, you get $100. Easy. It's the easiest $100 you've ever made if you didn't get in on this already last weekend with the college basketball. Now it's just any basketball game. Go bet $1, win $100 with a 3-pointer. Why not jump on it? Pretty much free money for you to go and make more money at DraftKings Sportsbook with more bets. So jump on it today. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app. Now, if basketball's not your thing, of course, you can always bet on hockey, soccer, table tennis, esports, pretty much anything under the sun that is qualified as some sort of a competition. DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered to bet on it. They've paid out over $7 billion to its customers since 2012. So jump on that DNVR promo code today to let them know we sent you over there and get yourself that $100. Must be 21 or older, Colorado only, new customers only, restrictions apply. Winnings paid out in 4 $25 free bets. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Do you want to put a bow on this forward core, or are you comfortable with it, and we can move into the defensive conversation versus Vegas here?
I'm good.
Okay.
I mean, I think we've made the point, right? Like we tried to talk about the top 6, and we were like, Burakovsky hasn't scored at even strength. Kadri's run hot and or cold. Let's get back to the bottom 6 because it's just been that big of a problem.
It really has.
So, and there's a lot going on the defense right now that we can dig into.
Yeah, the defense has been a little bit all over the place. Granted, Sam Girard and Devon Taves just kind of got dropped back into the lineup for the outdoor game. So they've only been back for a couple of games. But the Avs defense is a little bit all over the place. Top to bottom even. I guess we can start with Cale Makar. Look, the production's fine. He's still on close to a nightly basis is doing ruining people's ankles and
that burst that he had in the second period last night where it was like Cale Makar hadn't really done a whole lot. And then he was like, I'm going to ruin all these dudes' nights. And Kadri just didn't live up to his end of the highlight reel. But that and then that BB that he fired on the power play in the third period.
Yeah.
Ooh, what a toe save from Fleury.
And
I still don't know how he saw that puck. He has so much going on.
Not the conversation of Makar's season. 1 goal this year. Plenty of opportunity, and the puck's just not falling for him.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because his on-ice shooting percentage is actually the highest on the team of the guys that regularly play.
And granted, there's 12 assists to back up that 1 goal.
Yeah, well, and it's he's been a great creator,
Yeah, he has settled into a bit more of a distributor role. With that being said, he still has hit multiple posts this year. As Ryan pointed out, he did struggle a little bit defensively the other night, but that game was weird. Makar in that game he didn't quite have his legs fully for whatever reason. One game like that, I'm not going to take too much away from it.
I told you they were going to do this.
Oh, God.
I told you. So the NHL literally just now announced that their last unscheduled game, Colorado St. Louis, has been rescheduled for April 2nd.
So they now have no 2-day breaks for the rest of the year.
Yep.
Great.
And it's funny. Hold on. Let me see. Do they reschedule? Ooh, they rescheduled a couple of Colorado games.
They moved around multiple things.
Yeah.
So maybe they have a break somewhere. Yeah, all right.
Yeah,
all right.
okay.
Live breaking news coming at you here.
Yeah, so this is the unscheduled game is now
on April 2nd.
Yeah. Or it looks like they moved the 20th, the game from April 20th to the 2nd.
Okay.
And then I just lost it. There are a lot of games in here.
A lot of movement.
Yeah. So the Colorado at St. Louis, which was originally scheduled for February 7th, is now scheduled for the 20th.
Okay. Of March?
Of April. So they took the game from April 20th and moved it to April 2nd. And then took the game
the scheduled game and moved it to the 20th. So that's so the second and third they could both be at home for the Avs, so they didn't have to travel. Yeah, that makes sense.
And then the Feb 7th game that got canceled, that got postponed, is now the game on the 20th.
Okay, yeah.
So they just kept the same opponent. They just moved that.
So they have and then straight in St. Louis. Yeah.
Well, and then so they had that Saturday game. Remember, I said that they can't move it to Friday night because the Saturday game was at 1 p.m.
Yep.
That game is now a 7 p.m. start. So they play Friday and Saturday.
Makes sense.
The April 2nd and 3rd.
Yep.
They just changed the start times. So this is actually a pretty easy.
Yeah. Dropped it in there. The only sad thing is the Avs now do not get 2 days off for the rest of the season, as I already mentioned. So
Yep.
what was already a sprint of games just got more sprinty. So it's gonna be a full-on sprint for the Avs. I'm gearing up to expect some injuries. We'll put it that way. Anyway, does that cover all the schedule changes? Was there anything else
for the Avs? Yeah, just those.
Okay, cool. So not most of the Avs were already rescheduled. They just kind of finished things up.
They had to find a home for one game, and the one game that they did, it's funny because it looks like 3 changes if you actually open up the press release.
Sure.
There are 3 Avs changes, but one of them is...
It's picking which game actually goes into the slot, really.
Yeah. Yeah. It reads funny because it says St. Louis at Colorado, originally scheduled for April 20th, is now scheduled for April 2nd at 7 p.m.
Yep.
And then it was Colorado at St. Louis, originally scheduled for February 7th, is now scheduled for April 20th at 6 p.m.
Yeah.
And then the start time of the April 3rd game is now 7 p.m.
Yep. So pretty straightforward there. The Avs will have the back-to-back at home against the Blues, and then we'll have a straight 3-game set in St. Louis in late April now, where their defense will probably play a factor. We've moved through Makar. We've talked about Taves a little bit already, who outside of that one bad game has arguably been the Avs' most consistent defenseman. Sam Girard has... I really don't have any complaints against Sam Girard. He's had a tougher game here and there, but outside of, having been put on the COVID protocol list, has been exactly what the Avs needed him to be to round out a top 4. So you're pretty content on the whole with the Avs top 3D there, if you want to call them the top 3. Where things start to get interesting start in the number 4 spot, which with EJ still out, so I guess long term, there isn't exactly a clear timetable on when he's going to come back. You're running a healthy bottom 6 outside of EJ of right now Byram, Graves, and Timmins. There's an argument to be made that defense can still contend for best in the league, but it's far from perfect. And I guess my question here is, the Avs have committed to Byram at this point. They're going to continue to play him, and for the most part, he's been fine. A little bit up and down at times, but you knew you were getting that out of a rookie defenseman. Are they committed to Timmins as well?
They should be.
I don't disagree, but are they?
I think so.
Okay. I
mean, they keep playing him, right? And even last night, kind of on the bad end of bad luck there. The penalty, he has a bad shift. He clears the puck with a back pass where there's nobody there and creates a break for Vegas.
Yep.
And then gets called for a penalty that on replay he didn't commit.
I mean, I think that's a penalty.
I think that the linesman committed the penalty and that Timmins committed the mortal sin of wearing an Avs jersey while the linesman tripped him. So
he put the stick was somewhere it shouldn't be. It might have been incidental, and in fact, I'm almost certain it was incidental. But
if the linesman's not there, I don't think it's tripping. I don't think any of that shit happens. Is what I'm saying. So I think it was just some bad luck there. I thought it was tripping live because it happened in front of us, but I couldn't really see the wall because where I was sitting, you just can't really see on ice at that wall right there. Anyway,
not the point. Yeah,
this is nitpicking. I didn't think. I thought it was bad luck, and that was the terrible shift. The rest of his game last night was fine. I just didn't have problems with the rest of his game outside of that one shift, which was bad. And then they scored on the power play, and then it was like, this is all Connor Timmins' fault, even though, the entire PK unit just let Alex Tuck do whatever he wanted.
the other defenseman we're about to talk about, Ryan Graves, got straight up beat down the middle of the ice. So I think Timmins has been fine. I really have no qualms with the Avs defense on the whole. Again, Timmins is kind of the same conversation as Byram, right? If you're sticking with him and willing to put him in the lineup, you accept some fluctuation in play from a rookie defenseman. That's part of the territory. Ryan Graves was kind of the same story in this series, despite not being a rookie and significantly older than those two guys. We saw in the outdoor game, Graves was great. He did exactly what the Avs wanted him to do on the defensive side.
What a game it was for him.
And then,
it was so nice to see too, because it was like, man, when Ryan Graves is playing well, boy, he is so solid.
And then it was right back to the inconsistency the very next game, where the puck management was bad, obviously getting completely torched on the power play, which, I mean, maybe you live with that. You know Graves isn't going to be the best skater on the team. But
it's so funny when I see people bag on Timmins and they're like, I don't think his skating fits on the team. And then it's like, Ryan Graves is right there.
Yeah.
As an example of how
it
poor
fits
skating
just fine. Yeah.
Works. Otherwise, like, how have they just, the only reason it stands out is because the other guys are such great skaters.
Yep.
And Timmins just hasn't found his way yet in the NHL. Like,
yep.
You can't think of, like, Timmins hasn't had all bad games, but if you sat down and asked any one of us which was Timmins' best game, and we had to do it blind, we wouldn't know which one to pick.
Nope.
There hasn't been a Connor Timmins game yet.
Yep.
And he's played like 12 of them. Like, this is the rookie that's getting the chance.
Yep.
So it's been interesting so far. If Eric Johnson if he were coming back anytime soon, he might be feeling more pressure to, I've got to do something. But I don't really mind Connor Timmins. And to be honest with you, the underlying numbers, it's funny the way that people talk about Connor Timmins.
Yep.
Because it's like, Connor Timmins sucks. Connor Timmins this. We've been waiting all this time for Timmins, and now he's bad, and people are giving up on him after 10 games. And then they're like, play Shane Bowers. And it's like, oh, yeah? Well, if he has a poor 10 games, then what are we talking about? You guys going to say that he sucks and you should give up on his ass too? Like, you can't have it both ways. Some of these kids and Bowen Byram gets a free pass, one, because everybody likes him. And that is always a free pass in fandom. Two, he's 19.
Yep.
So, everybody loved Jacob McDonald because it was a lot of fun. But Evan is 100% right when he says that guy has no structure to his game. He can't play an NHL game. I don't mean that as in he can't physically play in an NHL game. He's very capable of that. But McDonald cannot fit inside the structure of an NHL team. It's very obvious that guy has made a career out of playing in the AHL, where structure is a suggestion, and he is
just
a
fourth forward.
Yeah. Full YOLO.
And
it looks different. Like, it looks like Jacob McDonald is way more effective than Connor Timmins because you're seeing him do stuff more with the puck. And then you actually start to look at the underlines and you start looking at the on-ice impacts.
He's so far up the ice that you actually don't blame him for the odd man rushes because he's not in the shot.
Yeah. You're just like, the guy's just gone. And like his McDonald's like underlying numbers actually have been quite good. And no big surprise when he touches the puck and he just throws all of the pucks at all of the nets, right?
Yep.
But he also played a really, really sheltered role. And when you look at Timmins, he's actually not getting sheltered very much. Now it's
relative, yeah.
Like the quality of competition is not very high, but Timmins is eating heavier defensive zone minutes than, say, Jacob McDonald was.
Yep.
And so he has a harder job. And I'm looking. I said it. You have to love Jacob McDonald rolling into games and just being like, screw it. I'm going for it, baby. Yeah, if you don't appreciate that attitude, I can't relate because it was awesome. It was awesome to watch. But when you're a head coach and you have a structure and you have a system and you're trying to ask defenders to do things like defend, having that guy constantly creating odd man rushes the other way by being too far up the ice is problematic.
Yeah.
And Timmins is kind of on the other side where, you know, he's been a little bit too timid to this point. Rookies, 22-year-old kids, you know. Jacob McDonald has hundreds of games of professional hockey under his belt. That guy doesn't have the same, like,
reservations for sure.
He doesn't have the same, like, man, maybe this is finally it for me. If I show really well, maybe I'll stick in the NHL for a long time. You know, he's like 27 years old. So it's just like you love the moxie. You love that he goes into a room dick first. That's awesome, right? Like, you love that kind of confidence. But that's when you actually watch what he's doing. Structurally, he's a major misfit for what they want to do.
Yep.
A guy that, you know, if a guy has a really poor game and you want to rotate him in there, totally okay with all of that, especially with the Gilbert injury. But a guy that you want to play every night, no. You're much better off seeing what you have in Connor Timmins. Much better off.
Yeah. And, you know, the Avs defense is in a bit of a weird spot. We have seen, to a certain extent, at least the big three of Girard, Makar, and Taves have picked up a little bit of the scoring slack for the bottom six for the Avs. Makar, you expect the production out of, sure. Girard has 10 points in the 13 games he's played, which is higher than previous years for him. He's producing extremely effectively. And Devon Taves has 7 points in 12 games. Granted, Girard and Taves, decent amount of those points come on the power play for them, but they're still producing where others are not. So it's been effective for the Avalanche. You don't have that same production out of Graves, Byram, and obviously Timmins has no points so far this year. But
yeah, also been problematic, man. Like, the defense as a whole can give you more.
Yep.
You know, you expect more offense out of Bowen Byram. And again, this is where we talk about, the on-ice shooting percentage is a little bit low. And for Byram, it is.
Yep.
It's at 6. For Connor Timmins, it's at 4, man. Like, some of the depth problems, you're not seeing Connor Timmins go out there and generate a ton of really high-quality chances. So it doesn't feel like he's getting screwed a little bit, but he is. I mean, he had like 5 shots blocked last night.
Yep.
You know, and open lanes that closed down after he fired the puck. Does he need to shoot sooner? Blah, 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 blah. Sure, we can have that conversation. Those are all things that maybe he needs to adjust. But to be honest,
But the Avs don't have to play a wicked hot Marc-Andre Fleury for at least a month. So...
And this is where this is the last point that I kind of want to touch on for today in today's show, man. They have a full month.
Yep.
Where they do not see the next month is enormous for Colorado.
No Vegas, no
St. Louis. I think they play Minnesota 3 times starting on Wednesday. Yeah, 3 times starting on Wednesday. They play Arizona all of the time.
4 times. They get San Jose twice in there. They get LA twice in there.
It's 6 Arizona.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, because of the back-to-back right before the next Vegas series. Yeah,
it's so they have 6 Arizona games, 3 Anaheim games, 3 Minnesota games, 2 San Jose, and 2 LA.
And let's be real, the Avs should not be afraid of any of those games. Basically, they should go into all of those games with confidence that they are a significantly better team.
Look, you need to get I should have been adding those up as I was counting them.
4, 6, 9, 11, 13, 15, 16.
You need 12 wins.
12 wins out of the next 16 games. And wouldn't you know it, 12 of those are at home. Or is it 11? I guess 11 of those are at home, yeah.
You need 12 wins.
So there you go.
You can't be splitting with LA. You can't be splitting with Anaheim. You can't be splitting with San Jose and Arizona. None of that shit. They need to start burying these guys. They need to start putting that separation, putting the pressure on Vegas. Hey, Vegas is 4 points up after that series. Just as they started it, the Avs blew their opportunity to erase the entire standings deficit, catch up to Vegas completely with a game in hand, and put themselves in the driver's seat of the division. That's what last night's loss cost them.
Yep.
It was not just a loss. It was a costly loss. They go from having a chance at a 3-1 season series lead against Vegas to now they're at 2-2. And you're going to have a different home ice feel and the next time these two teams play each other, because there will not be fans at Ball Arena when Vegas comes to Colorado. But the next time that the Avs go to Vegas, they'll have fans.
Yep.
Starting March 1st, the Golden Knights are welcoming back 2,500 people. They don't play until the very last week of April. By that point, who knows how many fans are there? So, last night's loss, look, Marc-Andre Fleury was great. The Avs were not. It is what it is. Through the 4-game series, it's funny because the 3-game, you learned more about Colorado and Minnesota in that 3-game series than you did about Colorado and Vegas in this 4-game series. Because
you have to throw 2 games out, basically.
Yeah, the outdoor game it's an outdoor game. It's whatever. The very first game that they played is their first game back.
Yep.
In 12 days. And then the second game that they played, they were missing 5 regulars. So they played one normal game against, and that was last night's game. Pretty much. You there's a lot of things that you can try and take away, but it was a bizarre 4-game series. We'll see, they're back on it where they're going to be clear-cut favorites every night for the next month. They've got to act like it. They've got to produce results like it.
Yep.
12 wins.
16 games. There are 3 back-to-backs in that. It seems pretty straightforward to me. The Avs, as you said, every night should be the favorite. If you throw out back-to-backs, because anything can happen on the second night of a back-to-back, you just don't know.
The big thing about these back-to-backs versus previous back-to-backs is that both teams are in the same situations. Right. There's no traveling. There's no advantages. There's none of that. Both teams in the exact same spots. The worries for Colorado is that those force you to play your backup goaltender.
Yep.
And right now, the Avs very, very, very much do not want to do that because they don't have one.
So, 12 wins, I think, is a fair assessment here. This is...
Well, and with 3 back-to-backs, if you win any games without Philipp Grubauer in net,
that gets a whole lot easier to get to 12.
It's a big win for you.
Yep. So...
Because in those games, okay, so those 16 games, 3 back-to-back, you're guaranteed to see a backup 3 times. You'll probably see another one because it's literally every other day now for the rest of the year for the Avalanche. You'll probably see a backup in there at some point.
For sure.
Other than the back-to-back. But Craig Anderson has a job in Washington, so they would have to go and get him.
He started just the other night for the first time in like a year.
Yeah. Based on that, no. Hunter Miss can give up 4 goals all on his own. What was I going to say? My brain just stopped.
You're talking about playing the backup goaltender or non-back.
You're gonna have a bad Philipp Grubauer night somewhere in there.
Yep.
And even asking him to continue at the level of play he has been is asking
pretty unrealistic. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're expected that at some point the level is going to drop. You just hope it doesn't drop too many.
Yep. And
so you're saying we've got 3 games for sure with the backup, probably a 4th, And then you're probably going to have one or two iffy Grubauer nights in there. You're hoping it's only one or two.
I mean, the reality is the next month is probably going to define the season for the Avs. The first quarter of the season, they've kept themselves within striking distance of Vegas. You've started to see the separation from, let's call the bottom 4 teams in the West. But if the Avs go 12-4, they're going to be feeling pretty darn good about taking that first spot in the West.
Well, so 16 games, it's 32 points in the standings before they see Vegas again.
Yep.
If they win, for them to go 24 out of 32 points, you're feeling sexy.
Yeah, exactly.
You've put a ton of pressure on Vegas to keep pace at that point.
Right. And if Vegas keeps pace, you know what, credit to them, but the Avs are still right there.
Yeah.
If
they match point for point and they roll into their next Vegas matchup with it being a 4-point deficit.
2 games at home versus Vegas could erase it right there.
Yep.
So and on the other side, if they struggle through this stretch, which they shouldn't, but if they do, you have to imagine talk about competing for first in the West is all but gone.
Yeah, depending on where Vegas, what happens with ahead of them. Yeah, 100%.
Not going to get too into the what if, but you can expect a top end team to perform relatively effectively.
There's no excuses for them not to have a strong stretch in these 16 games.
Yep.
I don't, the Kings are the only team where I'm like, these guys just get the Avs. They have the Avs number for all of their history. There's only 2 games against them.
Yep. Even the Duck series includes back-to-back, so you avoid Gibson most likely for one of those games.
Oh,
So it's go time for the Avs, basically, is what we're saying.
It's get right season. All of these numbers with all these guys in the bottom 6, it's time to start getting healthy.
Yep. Production, baby.
Start. You're going to go out there against a bunch of teams that have already started. Anaheim's already like, we're pulling veterans out of the lineup to see what some of these kids have got.
Played the other night. Yeah. It's already getting to be that time around the NHL. Halfway through March, you'll see teams start to really put it in the tank, I think.
Yeah.
So there you go. Like and subscribe to the video as we're going to get out of here for the day. Thank you, everyone watching, listening, consuming the podcast, however you do. We very much appreciate it. We hope you will continue to follow us here. We will be back again tomorrow night after the Avs game for a live post-game pod. I believe it's AJ and I on that one. Blaze, of course.
Tomorrow?
Yeah.
Yes.
Evan's in the arena, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Evan's got the assignment.
There you go. So,
and then we will be in the bar Friday and Saturday.
Friday and Saturdays back to back. We will be at the bar doing our show live from the bar. So come on down, hang out, have some fun. Get down there, and we'll be sure to chat you up if you're looking for us. You know how it is. Shoot us a DM on Twitter or something if you're coming down to the bar. That's all I got. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you learned something or something. I don't know. We will catch you guys next time.